It's time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
What's going on, all you oil streamers? I left the music up. I turned my mic down. What's happening? Dusty and Gazzola with you. Once again, Oil Stream brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Nothing says thunderstorm on a Wednesday afternoon like a Popeye's chicken sandwich warming you up. Tommy, did you get caught in that rain at all? Did you get hammered downtown or what?
Yeah, it was coming down like crazy. I have all my blinds closed. It was dark, and I had to crank all the lights on in my condo, and no, I haven't been outside in like 3 days. So
I had to go do school pickup, and it was a torrential downpour. I'm an umbrella. Elizabeth's with me. She's got an umbrella. Marshall comes out of school. He's got the umbrella. We're all running back. I still had to get changed out of my clothes when we got back. Like that's how much it was raining just a few moments ago. So it was nuts. But I gotta say. And we apologize. I was on a golf trip last week. We didn't do any oil streams. We're going to have some extra stuff coming for you down the stretch here. But I got to say, that Riverhawks hat, man. Lieutenant Eric's been rolling one on the show as well. Yeah. I love that two-tone blue look. Plus, I mean, the hawk itself looks great.
It's a beautiful hat. The logo is nice. It's a New Era 5950. And as nice as the hat is, the stadium is in fantastic shape. Remax Field, downtown Edmonton. I have to give credit to Randy Gregg and my old boss, Steve Hogle, because they have something there that looks good. The scoreboard, everything's updated. There's a little bit of a buzz when you go to the game. So I went with Lieutenant Eric and Cam Moon, and we ran into the Oilers digital team there. It was bring your dog to the park day. So we had a really good time in the sun. It was actually nice and warm, which it feels like we haven't had this summer at all. But yeah, the hat is great. It's kind of that blue on blue, and the logo is beautiful. So if you get a chance, go check out. And you want to watch baseball, go see the Riverhawks. They've got a good thing going there.
We've got tickets to like minor ball day on the 26th this Sunday, and right now it's looking like a high of 26 on Sunday at the ballpark. So that's going to be.
Now, are you going to get a hat?
I'm getting a hat. Yeah, I'm getting some swag, awesome. Buddy. Yeah, I'm definitely getting it. Is it Profit on the back, or is it?
It's Profit. It's 7 3/8, I think.
That brim, that's the straightest brim as I'll be rolling. I don't know if I'll be able to pull that off. I'll work it in. That'll be all right. All right, Tommy.
That's the beauty of these hats. The 5950s is like you can mold them. Like they're the legit MLB game day caps. Like you can mold these things. You can have a big curve. You could have no curve. Whatever, but and then they actually like this one I'm working in, so it's kind of big. It'll shrink to my head, to my pinhead. So
perfect.
It's gonna be great.
All right. I knew a few of the guys would be in. Sean's in. He says, Dusty, get that flat brim. I know. I'm not flat. Look at this. Do you think this is gonna be me? That's not me.
That's not the kind of hat for a flat brim. That's the type of hat that comes with the curve. Yeah. I
got a bunch of hats hanging on the wall behind me over here.
Right.
I got no flat brim, so I'd throw one on. Next time. Well, no, Friday I'll be in Winnipeg, so I won't have any hats. We'll still do an oil stream on Friday, but I'll be in Winnipeg. But next Wednesday, flat brim hat. We'll try to make that work. All right, Tommy. Jay Woodcroft extension. We'll get to Ken Holland today as well, but Jay Woodcroft gets the extension, pretty much what we were expecting. 3 years, I think $2 million. I said earlier on my show this week, I said, I really don't care how much a coach makes. Like, it doesn't matter to any of us in any way. It's not impacting anything to do, with salary cap or anything along those lines. So 3 years, $6 million total for the 3 years, which I think is pretty good value anyway for the Edmonton Oilers. Not a massive cash investment into your head coach. But anything stand out from what Jay Woodcroft said today? And what are you thinking that he'll be able to do with this new opportunity, having a chance to start the season, to go into training camp, be a part of off-season building of a team? How big is this going to be, do you think?
It's important, big time. And today was uneventful. There wasn't really a lot to reveal outside of Jay Woodcroft having to buy another house in Edmonton after just recently selling his house in Edmonton a couple of years ago. It's good. Now that this is out of the way, it's taken care of. You have him for the next 3 years. I mean, you would assume for the next 3 years. It's not too long, not too short. Enough time to build on the work he's already put together with this club, which is impressive so far. So this is an important first step in the offseason for the Edmonton Oilers. Now Jay Woodcroft gets to really mold this team, shape it, and have it play how he wants, implementing systems right off the bat instead of having to do it in increments, very small ones,
Yeah.
at an extremely hard time. I remember on my show saying that I didn't think it was a good idea to bring Jay Woodcroft in when things were going so poorly for the Oilers. Now, they won a couple of games, went into the All-Star break, lost the next 2 back-to-back nights here at home, and then they made the move. So it wasn't as bad as the darkest days of the season. And Jay Woodcroft, surprisingly, to me at least, just hit the ground running and had nothing but success. And that's a credit to him and Dave Manson and the rest of the group for getting the attention of the players. This is a good day. It's a formality that we all knew was coming, and they took care of it. It's good.
Manson get done at some point here too, do you think?
Has to. And they kind of hinted at that. Woodcroft, that's his right-hand man. Where Dave Manson is great, not only working with the defenseman and having the voice, that's a bad term to use because we know what happened to his voice, but to have a voice with the young defenseman and to have the respect of the older defenseman, he has that proverbial voice, if you will. That's the best way to say that. And so this is an important guy. And on top of that, Dusty, where Dave Manson is very good, from my discussions with people around the organization, is Jay Woodcroft is all in all the time, very hands-on. For young players, that's great. For older players, superstars in the NHL that have been doing it for a long time, they might not react so positively to that. And Dave Manson is great at helping guide Jay Woodcroft in saying, hey, go hit the gas with this and go pedal to the metal to talk to the players, deal with them, checking on them. And Dave Manson's also really good at being the guy that goes, Jay, tap the brakes here, give these guys a little bit of space and time, and then come back and talk to them and hit on all the points you want to. So Dave Manson's a sounding board for Jay Woodcroft, and that's very important. So that's why they're kind of a 1-2 punch, and that's why we assume, and it all seems to be that the indications point to him being locked up as well.
Holland's been doing his job forever, and Woodcroft's been coaching for a long time, but here he is finally as a head coach in the National Hockey League. I'm sure the discussions happened as they were working on this deal. And maybe with a veteran coach, you see the Tortorella's hired, Paul Maurice gets hired. People still say, well, when's Babcock going to get back? Maybe it's a little bit of a different vibe with them, but what type of input do you think Woodcroft has on free agency and the list that they build? Like, is it Ken Holland saying, hey, here's the guys I'm getting you, do what you can with it? Or is it Jay Woodcroft saying, man, this guy really fit in to what I want to do here. Let's make him a priority. How do you think that relationship works for a guy who's new in his position with a guy who's been doing it for 30 years?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the same as what Dave Tippett was able to do and have sway in some of the signings, just because Jay Woodcroft is in his first go-around as a head coach here. Like, this truly is him immersing himself. Now, he's going to provide feedback. He's going to tell Ken Holland about his rapport with some of these guys that might be signed or that they're targeting, how he thinks some of them might fit in with the system he's trying to implement. There's going to be, and Jay Woodcroft's not afraid to give feedback. This guy's been around the league for 17 years, Dusty, but it's just how far does that impact or that input go, and how much of an impact does it have? And I feel like it'll probably be a gradual progression for Jay Woodcroft in terms of really having the onus to go, you know what, I want that guy. I want that guy. No, that guy's not good. I don't think he's the type of guy to do that just quite yet, but he's certainly not afraid to give his point of view.
All right, Ken Holland also chatting today. Anything stand out for you from Ken Holland today, Tommy?
Not really. Again,
we always have to ask, right? Like,
I was sitting there like sipping on my coffee in the Zoom
in the old Zoom meeting there.
I'm like, I've got a couple of questions I could fire off to these guys, and then the beat writers are got to follow their story. So I'm like, you know what? No, it was already 25 minutes long. I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna enjoy my coffee and listen. No, Ken Holland, he kind of, Daniel Nugent-Bowman asked him about a few housekeeping things, which is important, which we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, nothing that really you looked at Ken Holland and were like, oh, geez, didn't know that coming into today. So it was just nice to see him. He looks like he's having a nice time because he's got a very busy summer ahead of him.
One of the housekeeping things is obviously Evander Kane. They'd like to get him back. What are you hearing on Evander Kane, Tommy?
The interest is there from the Oilers. Absolutely. They will make an offer of some sort. What I'm hearing is that the Oilers do have a max term and they do have an amount in mind. They can't go $8 million per year. They just cannot.
Like that's just not happening. Yeah.
Not at all. They have ways to get to the amount in their mind that they think that they can make an offer to him that he might be enticed by. And obviously there would be some negotiation. Like the Oilers, this is how I'm going to just throw it at you. Edmonton's going to come in with an offer to Kane. Clearly, Dan Milstein, Evander Kane will listen because of how much success he's had. He's got an opportunity to play with McDavid and Draisaitl for a few more years, right? Like, what an opportunity. And they're going to come in, and the money's not going to be where he wants it. The term, depends on what he's feeling. He might be okay with the term that they offer him. He might not be. He might want more term. He'll definitely want more money, and then they'll go back and forth. There'll be a little bit of wiggle room, but they are not giving him $8 million a year. I would be surprised if they go to even $7 million.
Yeah, so they're looking at something 5-6 range,
Dusty,
right?
And in terms of like term length, I could see Edmonton offering 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to get much more term than that anywhere else. Right. I think 3 years. It's as far as I'd want to go, just because. And I know this was a sweetheart ride when he was here this time, but what happens if in a year and a half, something pops up again and all of a sudden he's not a good fit in the room and he's not a great teammate like we've heard at literally every other stop that he's been at. I mean, then you only got a year and a half that you have to put up with it. You try to milk it for as much as you can. Maybe there's a deal there if he's been playing well and there's some ways out of it. But it doesn't surprise me to hear that 3's probably as long as they want to go, because I don't know many teams that are going to be, just based on history, I'll say it will be crazy enough to go longer than 3 years. Like 3 years to me is full-blown max that anybody be willing to go on Evander Kane. And he might see that when/if he gets to market.
Right. And I think he probably wants to hit a home run with this contract. He's in the meat of his career. Yeah. So that might play against the Oilers. And then to those people and fans of the team, fans of Evander Kane that say, well, he was a perfect soldier and a great citizen for the team since he got here. The answer is, yeah, he was, because he had to be. And then I'll reiterate too, he was in San Jose, and that's, the most recent situation where you go, oh yeah, he was a sweetheart for that first run when he got traded to the Sharks, and then it turned into a nightmare.
Yeah, so you just have to be careful with it. You have to be careful with it. I'd be pretty surprised. It's tough because free agency always goes nuts. But this guy is an interesting case. He's a different case than a lot of these free agents. So, I mean, I'd still, just knowing the history, and I think I'd be surprised if anybody gave him more than 3 years, $18 million total. Like, I think that might be the top end for him, which is still a pretty damn good deal if you're Evander Kane to bring in that type of money. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. The one thing I was wondering, with the way like this whole thing will need to be sorted out with the arbitration and grievance and everything. Like, do you think there's any? And I don't think that this is the case. But with the way that it's scheduled and what they say, it might not be done until after free agency. And buddy, you know how the free agency works. Like, majority of the money is spent in the first 36 hours. Yep. So I'm wondering how many teams, considering the baggage that Evander Kane does come with, how many teams are going to be willing to hold up their plans to wait and see what happens with Evander Kane to go down that path. So, like, I'm wondering if there's any sort of appetite, or if it would make sense. There's probably not any sort of appetite. He'll want to cash as much as he can. But I wonder if there's like this sort of ultimate fallback plan where it's like, hey, it's not going to happen for you this year because the arbitration took a little bit longer than you expected. Here's another sweetheart deal to play with McDavid for 1 more year, score 45 goals, and then go cash in after you do that again. Do you think there's like a slight chance that could happen?
I think they have to, given the unique circumstances, consider all options. I do feel like, though, there are only a few teams. There's probably a handful of teams that are willing to really take a strong look at Evander Kane. Like, he's toxic. There's clearly teams that are just going to be like, no, thank you. We can find the scoring and not have to deal with the bullshit with other players. Like, so I'm sure there's at least half of the league that's just like, no, thanks. Like, we don't even want to bother. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure there's like 4 or 5 teams that are salivating over the idea of Evander Kane. And then maybe a couple of them would be like, all right, we'll save some money aside. Maybe we'll wait to find out what happens. So, yeah, the Oilers or any other team or the Kane camp might find themselves in a situation where they might have to just do what Taylor Hall did when he went to Buffalo, just find the best deal for the most money and then try to get a trade at the deadline. I could see something like that playing out again too, Dusty.
You had to mention Taylor Hall, didn't you? We'll save some Taylor Hall stuff for another future episode of the Oil Stream.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say.
Hey, I wanted to throw, so Xavier Bourgault, first star in that win over the Oil Kings. I know Low Tide dropped a piece on, some of the valuable assets that the Oilers have that they could move this offseason. And, we'll still tease once again our full-blown Jesse Puljujärvi episode. That'll happen at some point over the next 2 weeks. I'm still building up the emotional stamina to get through that one, Tommy. It's going to be big. Okay. It's going to be important.
Yeah.
But, and I guess Chiarelli tried this. When you get your hands on McDavid, you're like, hey, let's fast forward this a little bit. So you give up picks to get Griffin Reinhart, thinking that he's going to be this defenseman who's further advanced, and it just backfires terribly on you. Do you think the Oilers are in a spot just yet? And I used Bourgault as an example because we're just watching him play in the Memorial Cup. But, there's the first-round pick. There's another first-round pick in 2023. Like, there's some guys, some younger guys, some prospects that you could possibly move to fast-forward things a little bit. Do you think there's any appetite for a Ken Holland-led team to somehow use one of these future assets to get this team, because they might have to do it from a financial perspective alone, but hopefully get a decent piece as well. Do you think that's out there this offseason? Do you think that could be something they look at?
Yeah, but I don't think it would be Bourgault. I mean, the Oilers, I'll say this, Edmonton's right side is going to look a lot different this year coming up.
Yeah.
And you're going to need a Xavier Bourgault in a couple of seasons to step in.
I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, can you wait a couple of seasons? Like, he'd be a rookie 2 years from now. Can you wait and expect to be a cup contender that year with a rookie that you're expected to do a lot? You know what I mean? Like,
maybe.
Yeah.
You can go and find wingers. That's the kind of saving grace is like wingers can be found. It's centermen are diamonds in the rough, and you have to groom them and develop them and have patience with centermen. The Oilers have a lot of centermen, which is great, and they should not be trading their centermen. But yeah, I think there's other pieces. I think they need to restock the shelves when it comes to defensemen because, now that Bouchard's up here, they traded away Bear. They're going to have to do something. Broberg's probably going to be on the roster this upcoming season. You got to figure out where Niemelainen fits in. You're going to have to figure out if Samorukov is even part of the organization moving forward. So there's going to be some movement there, and they're going to have to restock the shelves on the back end with prospects. And I think the forward group, I know Raphael Lavoie is one of those guys as well. Probably expect to see Dylan Holloway if he doesn't make the team out of camp halfway through the season. I know that injury set him back, but I don't think they would be in a hurry to trade a Xavier Bourgault. I think they'd be more interested in finding a trade partner or using, if they free up some cap space to sign a decent right winger to fill in for a year or two. I could see that being more likely.
Yeah, maybe a stopgap there. I'm just trying to think of trying to win it in the next 2 years, right after what happened this year, right? And their sense of urgency with McDavid and Draisaitl's contracts.
But Dusty, you don't need to go and get a superstar right winger. If you have like 5 or 6, like you have 2 superstars down the middle, you're going to have a great, you're going to have. I mean, but
if they don't have Evander Kane next year, I think they've got one guy who can score 30 goals on the wing, and that's Zach Hyman. Yeah. And that's it. Nugent going to score 30. Yamamoto's not scoring 30. Puljujärvi probably won't even be here, and that's it, right?
And that's why you go shopping for wingers. Yeah. That's why you go, and I think you can find guys who can score 20 goals for a reasonable.
But can you afford to bring them in as a free agent? Or do you have to trade something to get them because you probably have to move some salary the other way?
What I would say to that, because I know that's the $1 million question with this team right now, is There are so many moving pieces right now, and so many things could happen that we don't know which route the Oilers are going to go. They might have to go free agency, or depending on what some guys decide to do, they might have to go via trade. They might have to sacrifice a Tyson Barrie, who I don't think they necessarily want to get rid of just to get rid of. There's so many things that have to happen, and there's so many moving pieces with this team right now that, as we'll get to in the question of the day, we'll see what happens. There's no like, oh, they're going after a winger like we knew last season. Oh, they're going after a veteran blue liner like we knew last season. We don't know that. Like, they need a goalie, and they need to figure out what goalie they would bring in, because they don't know if their goalie's coming back. Are they going to need a left shot defenseman that's not a young guy? We don't know. Like, there's so many things up in the air right now, and so many variables at play that it's so hard to determine which way they're going to go, because it's not even in their own hands right now.
Are you saying busier off season than we expect?
It could be.
Yeah, it could be really sneaky busy. Sneaky busy off season, which would be great for the Oil Stream. Subscribe today. If you're watching the live stream, subscribe to the podcast. We're going to have a ton to talk about. Let's get to your Ken Morrison Remax question of the day, brought to you by a guy that I saw at the card store yesterday, Ken Morrison, and we were both in our perfect little world. It was great. But he was on the way to buy and sell houses. 780-993-4815. You can visit his website at kenrmorrison.com. He's the Remax Hall of Famer. Tommy, what do you got today?
Shout out to Jay Morrison, Ken's brother, who I had a beer with on Monday. Good to see Jay as well. Ken's a beauty too. They're good dudes for sure. Ken Morrison Remax question of the day is this, Dusty. Now that Jay Woodcroft is taken care of, he's signed. We're assuming Dave Manson is soon to follow. What should the Oilers' next priority be if you're Ken Holland?
Woo-wee. I like this one. You got those guys done. Part of me, man, it kind of comes back around to our priorities that we had, a couple of weeks ago. Like, I'll just say the first thing that jumped into my mind, and that was re-sign Kulak. That would be it. Like,
sure.
You've got some RFA stuff that you can certainly take care of, and maybe there's some trades to be negotiated here. But I do think Kulak would be a really nice piece for the next 3 years, because when Kane's done, I think Kulak can just kind of slide right in there, play with Nurse and whoever else you want to slot in on your left side. You can move Broberg over to the right side for a little bit, then he can come back over to the left side. So I do think, because I think it's something that they can afford without having to move the world, move heaven and earth, as they say. I think that's something that I'd be pretty on board with. So that would be one. And I guess, I wanted to think of something else, but the very first thing that popped into my head was try to get Kulak done. So what about for you?
Completely understandable. For me, if I was Ken Holland right now, I would be getting ready a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in case they don't get Mike Smith back, in case Duncan Keith decides to retire, in case Evander Kane doesn't wind up back with them, doesn't like their offer, or the negotiations don't go well. I think that they need to, and I'm sure they are, is put together plan A for, okay, say you get Smith and Keith back. How do you find money to bring a guy like Kane back if he's willing to come back? Or if not, how do you have money to go and get an impact winger or two? What happens if only one of Smith or Keith comes back? Then what do you do? Plan C. And I think they need to figure out what their multiple plans are depending on how scenarios play out, and that's what I was trying to get at, is there's so many moving parts right now that this team could look quite similar to how it finished last year with a few new faces, because we know there's going to be guys that are moved, or it could look completely different when it comes to the bottom six and goaltending, obviously, and then maybe even a couple of defensemen. There's so many factors right now. It's just crazy. So I think getting plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in place in case of you're ready for everything would probably be the next thing to do, in my opinion.
There's a lot to do. I kind of hope they already have 8 plans in place. I mean, I got 6 plans in place for my fantasy football league team. So,
right?
Yeah, you got to
That's
have
good
all those
management.
different. I imagine like Ken Holland just with a bunch of different big boards all around the office. I hope that's how he's kind of rolling with it. But yeah, I mean, we're just getting started here. We got a ton of stuff to dive into over the next month or so leading up to the draft and free agency in the National Hockey League. That was your Ken Morrison Remax question of the day. As always, the Oil Stream is brought to you by our great friends at Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. I will be in Winnipeg on Friday. You're going to be doing my show Friday, I do believe, and then we'll connect after to bang out a Friday episode of the Oil Stream, Tommy. So take care of the show, and I will talk to you later in the week, my man.
Dusty, remember to like, smash that subscribe button, and make sure to turn on the notifications so you know when we're going live on YouTube.
Oh, wow. Give us a sub.